None of the traditional noisy protests outside Parliament today. Just ever-increasing floral tributes. Messages of love, loss and respect. And it was a desperately subdued House of Commons which held an extraordinary gathering today to remember one of their own. A white rose of Yorkshire on each and every lapel. A red and white rose where Jo Cox should have been sitting.
Order. Colleagues, we meet today in heartbreaking sadness, but also in heartfelt solidarity.
It was the Labour leader who spoke first and spoke for many.
Her community and the whole country has been united in grief and united in rejecting the well of hatred that killed her in what increasingly appears to have been an act of extreme political violence.
But if I may, I'd like to quote from someone already mentioned, the Honourable Member for Wirral South. Jo, we mourn your loss, yet know that all you stood for is unbreakable. We promise to stand up even though we are broken. We promise that we'll never be cowed by hate.
I stand today to honour a friend and a colleague.
Sentiments echoed by Jo's close friend Rachel Reeves, who spoke with the eloquence of raw grief to urge colleagues to take on the late MP's mantle.
She died doing the job that she loved, in the place that she loved, representing the people that she loved. Her mum and dad said to me that Jo wouldn't have changed a thing. She lived the life that she wanted to live. And yet, in her mum's words, she had so much more that she could have done.
Jo's husband, Brendan, her 2 young children and parents held hands as MPs contemplated the heartbreak of a little girl and boy growing up without a mother.
But last, let me say this. Batley and Spen will go on to elect a new MP. But no one can replace a mother.
They told of a family which took precedence over long days at Westminster.
Not long after she had her son, she came to give me one of those regular briefings, and of course the baby came too. And I remember it because she literally didn't stop kissing him all the way through the meeting. And when she had her daughter, she was still there for the women who were trying to become candidates, texting them support, phoning to commiserate if they didn't make it, urging them to try again.
And it was that compassion which informed her work.
She always said to me emphatically that her children were her priority above everything. But there was no dividing line between Jo's maternal heart and her great political heart.
Nowhere more so than in Syria, where she campaigned for Britain and the world to do more to end the suffering.
Let me begin by saying again Jo's own words. Who can blame desperate parents for wanting to escape the horror that their families are experiencing? Children are being killed on their way to school. 1 in 3 children have grown up knowing nothing but fear and war. Those children have been exposed to things no child should ever witness. And I know that I would risk life and limb to get my 2 precious babies out of that hellhole.
There were many tears, but also fond memories of a woman who was as determined as she was sensitive.
She could also make herself a right royal pain in the backside if she profoundly disagreed with you, a lesson that far too many political leaders learnt too late and to their cost. And he reflected on Jo's years influencing Peter Mandelson when she headed Oxfam's Brussels office at a young age. He had to quickly adapt his approach.
And as friends and political foes echoed each other in their sorrow, it was her own words they kept returning to.
Those words from Jo's maiden speech must therefore truly ring out today. We are far more united and have far more in common with each other than the things that divide us.
As if to illustrate the point, MPs from all parties rose to their feet to pay tribute.
She was Labour to her fingertips, but restlessly dismissive of party political manoeuvring, which she saw as a barrier to progress. Making common cause with a crusty old Tory, she and I became co-chairs of the all-party Friends of Syria. And she was brave.
This was a Commons stunned into an unprecedented tenderness.
Jo Cox, we love you, we salute you, and we shall never forget you.
The usual niceties of parliamentary business still had to be observed, but there was nothing usual about this debate.
There is a tributes motion, and I have to put the question, but I hope that when I do so, it will attract the loudest unified response in the history of this House. The question is that this House has considered the matter of tributes to Jo Cox. As many as are of that opinion say aye.
Aye. Most unusual too was the roar of applause. Sound and fury signifying something. A determination perhaps to honour a remarkable woman by healing deep divisions in our democracy.